Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a great afternoon. This is Bill, AT Makers. I have an update this afternoon for those of you playing along at home on the joystick work we've been doing. Actually, a really kind of successful one. So I'd like to go over it. Say hi to the folks on Facebook. Make sure I can see their responses. So if you're over there, say hi. Let me know that somebody is here to see this. But we got in all the parts from Pololu, which was the little adapter. We got them wired up onto a board, hooked up. It worked exactly the way we wanted it to. The exception of a little bit of timing on when you come up, when you power on, having to wait a second for the joystick to wake up before you connect it to the XAC. Everything worked as expected. And I'm happy to kind of give you some demos of that, show you how it's working, kind of show you what's coming up next on it. So I guess the first thing, I did not... it's going to be one of these days. All right, well, it says that I'm reconnected and everything is good, so I'm going to keep going. And I've got a recording of it. I can always clean it up and post that. So... I have a video to show you that we made earlier over in the other room where the Xbox is hooked up. And I didn't want to hook up, I don't even know how to hook up an Xbox here so you can see it. But I'm going to go ahead and show that first, and then we'll talk about that and show you how that's working. All right, so we got Eric Carson, AT Makers, playing Forza 4. Using an Xbox XAC, our little adapter box, and a tiny mini joystick, mini proportional joystick. This one right here is going into our box, coming out. You finished?
I finished.
And he actually finished the race. How about that? And so this works well. It works as the left joystick on this. That's where we plugged it in. It is super sensitive, but totally works, and I can send it to Steve. All right, so we got Eric Carson. All right, let's see if I can mute that and talk my way through what you just saw. So as you can see, that's the box that we made, the proportional joystick that was donated by Jonathan Lasko and Max, hooked up to an XAC through our box, working exactly as the left joystick of the XAC. Not our best video ever, but let me kind of show you here what that thing looks like and how it works. So here's the actual box. It's got a cover on it. You see there's that little indicator telling you what the status is here, but there's what the box looks like when it's open. This is a Adafruit M4 Feather. It's one of their faster Feather microprocessors. And you see it's got actually 5 wires coming out of the back going into this jack right here. Now this jack is a standard 9-pin breakout jack that we're using to connect to the 9-pin plug from this mini joystick. And that looks like this. Right? So this is the actual joystick. As we move this around, it will send that information into this jack in here, and then it's processed by the microcontroller and sent out as standard HID joystick, standard USB joystick, with the modifications necessary for the XAC, thanks to Dan Halbert and the folks in the CircuitPython group. So I'm going to take this apart and show you kind of what this is made up of. But this is it working. It's working great. I guess before I take it apart, why don't I show you real quick what it looks like as a device. So, so here's a Windows tester for the joystick. And you'll see that as let me see if I can get this where you can see it. As I move this around, it is moving the joystick around just fine. There is very little jitter. It keeps its position through the full circle of range here. It doesn't hit the corners. That's pretty standard for a mechanical joystick. And Xbox will actually let you adapt to that. The fact that you can't actually get all the way to that corner, Xbox actually has a setting for that in its sensitivity settings. So this totally works perfectly. It sends the information in. It does show up as a non-composite device that sends negative 127 to 127 as the values. That's what the XAC requires for a joystick to work. And so we've got the modified version of CircuitPython running that. I can show you while we're here. I had shown earlier the readings, and some people, mainly Glenn Dobbs, liked the fact that I was showing the input. But so here's the input from this device, and you can see it's pretty smooth, right? It's not jerky like we were seeing before. We are still averaging. You still need to on this. This one is averaging as so this is set to 6. So we're averaging every 6. We have a rolling average of 6 readings on here. But if I change it down to 1, you will see it still has some of the raw readings in there. But it's still much smoother than what we were dealing with before with my handmade circuit board. So with this set to 6, it's nice and smooth. It is fast enough that it reads really well, and it's great. I'm very happy with the performance of this guy now. So let me take this apart. I do want to keep this up to see if I've got any questions. I'm not very good at questions here. Hi Betty, hi Kate, how are you? So good to see you. So let me take this thing apart physically and show you kind of what it's made of. I might shrink myself over here. There you go. Give you a little more room. So let me unplug this, and we'll take this thing apart and show you kind of what it is. So I just unscrewed this so it's loose, but it is actually screwed down. So on the left is a stock Feather M4, and I'm going to pull that off of here if I can. Might have made it too well. There we go. All right, so there's the standard M4 coming off. That's a standard microcontroller. In fact, the only thing custom about that is the green headers, which I liked. And then this is the board that I actually made. So let me get that out of the way and kind of show you this. This is the custom board that we talked about making the other day, and I did. It actually laid out really nicely. Let me focus it in there for you. It has on the left that little tiny power converter. So this steps up the 5 volts from USB up to 12 volts. And that's all this little chip does, and it does it remarkably well, way better than I could do with all the components that I had. That 12 volts is then sent out the brown and the red wire coming in, the ground there is on the brown wire. So these two are sent out to the joystick here, and they come back on these 3 values, which are centered around 6 volts. They come back in. These are fed into voltage dividers, 3 voltage dividers here, which feed them into the analog inputs on the microprocessor board. And that's really all this board does, is it converts 5 volts to 12, sends it out to the joystick, takes back the values, and converts them to a range that the microprocessor can read. And so that's kind of that's the purpose of this, and it is what it does. It is on a it's called a Perma Proto board, but a Proto wing with all these extra holes in it. And it does require some wiring and some jumpering along the back. I suppose I can pull this out and show you the back if you want. Why not? It's going to be soldered up forever once I get done with it. So maybe I can do that. Might have to take the screws out to do that. Might not be worth it to do that. I could take a vote, I suppose. Let's see. This is why we buy expensive screwdrivers. Alright, so take these out. Here I can kind of show you the back of this. So here's the wiring I had to do on the back. It's not too fancy. See if I can get that to focus a little better. But I did have to make the jumpers from the resistors onto these wires, and then from the resistors again into the analog inputs, and I had to get the power and ground wired together here. So this is not necessarily something that I would want to ask high school kids to do, but it's not fancy. It's actually a pretty easy circuit to put together. What I would like to do is to give them something like this. So this is the output joystick device, but I designed the input equivalent of this, and I've actually sent it to PCBWay, and it will be back on Friday. So what's nice about that is that at this point there will be no wires left. So all these colored wires will go away, and it will basically be pop on the 3 pins that go to this voltage converter, and then pop in the 6 resistors to given holes that are made for them, and put these headers on to pop on a microcontroller. And that'll be it. That's all that will be required. It's probably half an hour of amateur work. If you have like high school kids doing it, it will probably take them about a half an hour to make one of these, and they'll be able to pop this together, and they'll have something that looks a lot like this, except for it will actually have the jack sticking out the back instead of these wires. And I think that would be great. I think that'll be a great project. I think it's something that Steve at Able Gamers would love to be able to provide. And I think it's something that we can have the teens make, or any makerspace can make one of these. We'll stock the boards and instructions. So I'm happy about that. I'm actually kind of excited about the idea of using people's PowerChair joysticks for other things, not just gaming. This makes it very easy to turn it into a mouse. It would be less work to make it a mouse than it is to make it an Xbox XAC adapter, and so that'll be interesting as well. There's no reason that can't drive a Bluetooth instead of a standard HID. So having something that controls the new mouse interface on iOS 13 or the new iPad OS, both now have mouse support. The ability to convert a PowerChair's joystick to that, I think, is very exciting, very interesting and exciting. So let me check and see if we have any questions or comments. We may not. I don't think we do. I mainly wanted to get this out. I'm going to take this apart and show it on Show and Tell tonight. So watch the Adafruit Show and Tell. I'm going to try and get on there. And then I'm going to package it up and seal it up and send it out to Steve Spawn tomorrow. I will make a smaller one with the board that looks like this when that comes in, but I won't have those parts until the weekend, and honestly, with Asha coming up, I don't have any time to play with it. So I'm thrilled that this is working, and I'm going to button it up and ship it. It still looks good. It's just about twice the size it'll be when the final boards are here. So hopefully that I learned a lot on this. I hope you guys paying attention might have learned some on it. And certainly have learned that these are completely interfaceable, right? These PowerChair mini proportional joysticks, the ones that look like this, these are they're not easy, but it is very possible to interface these to other electronics as you see fit. So if you have any questions, post them down on the bottom, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.